It's been an open conversation. Now you're back to it. Oh, yeah.
Your parliamentary work experience can ensure that the next members throughout UK, and in the 9,000 we have retailers in the high street and the rural areas as well, and they're all over UK. I'm also a retailer in a small town called Blantyre. Most of you won't recognise, but some of you will, because it's a birthplace of David Livingstone, the explorer. So the thing I would firstly say is that I've been a serving councillor. This is my third term in South Lanarkshire Council. So I do understand the issues that government face, local government, and what we face in retail as well. And I think the previous administration have made it so that it's made it very difficult for us now that we're starting from several steps back and we're playing catch up. And I think because of that there's going to be a fair bit of work involved in collaboration between business and and uh, and yourselves, the politicians. First, the introduction to the Fed. We are over 100 years old, our federation, and glad to say not many of us were there when it was first started. The membership is mainly small business. We call CTE, small convenience stores, and we are a hub of the community. And what that really means is that we're not just a business, we're just not a local shop. We're also the social work there, we're also the fundraiser there, and we also have the finger on the pulse of what's happening out there as well. I think the other thing about we can say about business and also our sector is that we have 5.7 million jobs in the sector. I know that last year there was a substantial loss in jobs, and that's true. And what I will say is the fact that we have a lot of issues that are facing the sector, and is damaging it quite badly. The shops over the years have evolved, and the reason we've evolved is because market has changed. We've got more online, we've got delivery, and also, but we have more issues, so that we're having to bring in more. We're having people that are going there buying things that they don't know what's inside them or anything, but it's a lot cheaper. But the second thing about that is they don't ID anyone they're selling to. And that's a big problem, because if they're not IDing the person they're selling to, then we're starting up another trend. If you, as a government, tell someone not to do something, the younger generation, and if you have children, you shall understand what I'm saying, is as soon as you tell someone not to do that, if you tell them not to press that, the first thing they'll be trying to do is press that, because what they want to do is that they want to put, show that, they're their own people, and also to get reaction. And my concern is that what we're doing is what we in America did with the banning of alcohol was boom, create money for organized crime, and also increase the smoking rather than reduce it. And that's where I've got a big concern about the generational smoking ban. I believe we firmly should be helping. We should be putting literature up, and we should be helping the member by guiding them towards classes and clubs and help groups. And I totally believe that we could get that down to zero in a timely fashion. But I think it's a sledgehammer to crack a nut case just now with this, and we have huge concerns about it.
Any other questions for me? Anything that anybody wants? To send off to the accountant, or whether it's simply just making sure the stock's there, where do we get our goods from, and what's our benefit in the community. And I think for me, you made a really pertinent point that when people come to our shop, and especially during COVID, or when people are suffering the cost of living crisis, and austerity has been so terrible in the last sort of 10 years, more than that really, that we used to give free fruit and veg and bread and milk to customers because we knew how hard it was for them with the current climate. So yeah, it's really important what we do, not just about being on the high streets, but actually what we give back into community. So one of the things that I really wanted to do when I got elected was to be on the business committee, because I believe we need more people that understand business on the committee to then say and advocate for it. So one of the biggest agendas is SMEs, it's women in business, and it's ethnic minorities in business. I am the only ethnic minority on the business and trade committee, and I'm really pleased to be flying the flag on these issues in particular, which is why I'm here to sort of listen to what your insights are and how I can bring that forward and bring that into workflow into our committee when it comes to reports, because it's quite the one of the big things about the committee, which I don't think maybe some people may not know, is it can go upstream and downstream. So if we put reports or recommendations, they can then go upstream to think about legislation. We can go downstream, put reports and put pressure onto the government and go, right, you know, these are things that we've seen, these are things that we're really going to be struggling with, these are the barriers that we really need to eliminate to allow business to flourish. And I would recommend anybody here around this table is that when there are inquiries, to submit, you know, reports, submit your evidence to say, this is great, this is working, this is not working really well. And that was the employment law, which you touched on. There's a lot of discussion about the employment bill. And sometimes I like to just discuss that and say, actually, it's brilliant. It's a really great way to get workers in a position that they do know what their pay package is. They're not struggling to do week from week because they don't know what the hours are and they haven't got any guaranteed hours. But we are looking at 0-hour contracts. However, we are not banning, there's not a full ban on 0-hour contracts. And I think that's a lot in the press and people get really quite concerned, especially with small businesses. When you're talking about seasonal workers, when you're talking about hospitality in particular, which do have a, you know, ebbs and flows and depending on the season, the 0-hour contracts won't be looking at going, right, it's a zero, it's a ban. It's actually looking at how many hours have you done, looking at guaranteed hours and then implementing them accordingly. So it's not a complete ban. This isn't not going to be out to 2026. So we're not putting this out so that businesses are now really worried that this is going to happen this year or the next few months. So there is time to adapt. There's an inquiry going on at the moment from the business committee. So we're doing the report, and so is the employment law bill. They're also doing giving evidence as well. And it's not just here, as you know, the process is not just from here. You'll also go to the Lords, and you can also give evidence there. So there's lots of time, but I would suggest people to utilise this. I always say to people, don't think, right, I'm going to sit on the sidelines and then get really angry about what we're doing. You know, work with us. You know, I'm, you know, part of a Labour government. I'm so pleased and proud to be an MP, you know, from this government. So please work with us. We want to make sure that we're protecting micro businesses and making sure that we're protecting NI, that we are giving them people good rights. Most businesses and this employment rights actually will already be doing all the right things. They aren't doing any sort of scandalous practices. Good businesses look after their staff, and that's all what the employment law bill is saying. So I'm happy to take questions when I take a seat. If you want some more, if you need some more questions, or you want to discuss it in a little bit more detail. I think what the other things I would like to see is more SMEs to be exporting and not just putting in-house, but looking at trade and how we get our businesses in the UK the environment and opportunities to export.
Upstream, for example, the local enterprise funding never really comes into retail. Helps manufacturing. Government always put money into manufacturing, and maybe Sainsbury's and Tesco's get this funding. But as a local independent business that serves the needs of the local communities, where are their livelihood? We're sometimes the only place where Auntie Laura or whatever can actually go and have that communication. We can't access funding. I might actually like government to probably to put on the next agenda is how can we get some of that money back? So we can start forwarding some of that to improve our life, you know, and take our stores, maybe our next generation.
So that is something that the business committee is looking at, is how we get initiatives, and that's something that we'll be feeding up into, you know, the Secretary of State, going, what can we do to say, right, We know there's a digital era. We need to make sure that people have got the opportunity to thrive, whether it's a networking, whether it's a, you know, like a grant funding or something like that we can do. So that's something we are looking into, and I think it's a really valid point.
Obviously, you know, the onus is on everybody to make them relationships and take that step forward, but I do think there's an onus on the government as well, and people, obviously you're very proactive and you understand the retail, but just some kind of guidance and legislation for the government to actually reach out to them small businesses that are suffering in silence, and just making them channels a bit more open and in presence of, right, this is, you know, there is help out there, there is support out there, and these are the channels that you can follow to get that support and help, because there is a lot of retailers and small businesses out there that are suffering.
So actually my retailers are mainly shopping precincts, which are 100% SME. We don't have like big retailers in them. And as people said, they are the lifeblood of many parts of my constituency, which essentially is a group of villages that over 50 years have joined up to form Northampton. What does the ACS and the Fed do to build local networks? Because I think in response to your question, I think that's really important, is how can we use the existing things that exist, your organisations, to perhaps connect retailers, town centres. We have a bid who does great work in my town centre, but actually, for me, it's those precincts of 5 to 10 shops across my constituency that I really need to do more work to help. So what mechanisms are there to help those retailers connect and share ideas and maybe build their voice?
Mm-hmm. Again, I think, so, you know, we're here together today as a retail, but for me, again, it's about local councils, local MPs. Again, the federation is brilliant to have, you know, these entities and bring people, you know, on a wider scale and nationwide scale. But for me, again, if everybody in their own local community took that step forward and open them channels, that's my main thing, is you know, just open them channels to say, all right, Bobby, you know, you're our local retailer in Pontefract, you know, if you could this, but it's not until recently, the last 10 years, you know, we learned that, you know, there's so much out there locally, but again, we've had to proactively build them relationships and go out there kind of thing. So I think just to open the channels of communication really, and make sure that small business down the road, you know, knows that this is happening.
I think it's a very good, you know, if it's not quarterly, every 6 months, to have it in a regular fashion, and our local retailers will be sitting down with yourselves and raising the concerns. We are already advising them on keeping the meeting simple, keeping the points to only 3 points, so that, you know, it's easier for yourselves to deal with. It's not scattergun effect, because in retailing we have 101 different issues, and that, you know, we'll try and keep it as simple as possible for yourselves as well.
So that's why we're here today, and I just asked the question, what more can the Federation do? Because you are going to struggle to get those thousands, you know, 30, how many retailers? 55,000 retailers around the country. You're not going to get that individual input. They rely on us to put the message across. So what more can we do? What more should we do? Because, you know, 93% of retailers saying they think generational smoking ban is going to make their life a lot harder. How can the Federation get that message across?
Can I jump in? I don't think
way, so that at least they're aware that something, even if they don't quite understand it, they know something's happening, so that when they approach us, when it does, we can then say, have you heard about the legislation? That's why we're doing it. And it's
presumably the Federation can produce something for members.
We do.
But she's always very happy to meet him.